Hey guys, we're back tonight, and tonight we're going to be covering the letter to Smyrna, which is Revelation 2, verses 8 through 11. I'm going to read verses 8 through 10, and we'll get this started. Write to the angel of the church in Smyrna, thus says the first and the last, the one who was dead and came to life. I know your affliction and poverty, but you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Don't be afraid of what you are about to suffer. Look, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison to test you, and you will experience affliction for 10 days. Be faithful to the point of death, and I'll give you the crown of life. So Jesus pretty much tells them, he's like, I know, he knows that they're faithful, and he knows that they're undergoing persecution. And he knows that they're being thrown in jail for their belief in him, believing as Christians and stuff. But he tells them, no matter what, just keep being faithful to the end, even to the point of death, even when death comes your way or you're threatened with death, we should always be faithful to Christ no matter what, because in the end, before we were, I guess you can say saved, but the whole basis or base of our belief is that Jesus died and rose again for us, and that provided our way for salvation. So just remember that. That's kind of that encouragement that you can push through to the end, because he pretty much, well, not even pretty much, he absolutely bore his all, and even our all, so that we may be with him again, or one day be with him. And to go into the persecution part, this place was like largely had a large Jewish population, and at this time, this population bitterly opposed Christianity, and so like there was this edict declaring emperor worship necessary, and it was throughout the Roman Empire, and he exempted Jews because they didn't want they didn't want these religious freedoms extended to Christians. That just goes to show you how deep this opposition was. And it says, some of these who, I know it says that some of these who claimed to be Jews were actually a synagogue of Satan, and they were doing the devil's work. They were going around and slandering believers, talking bad about and defaming or defamation, to these believers. See, and it even mentions, that I know your affliction and poverty, but you are rich. Even though they felt that they were poor, they were actually rich. They are rich in spiritual reward. Well, their coming reward, which would, they're storing up like treasures in heaven for their spiritual endurance, even when they're, tempted to the point of death because of their faith. They chose to push on because they knew what this was worth. Verse 11, we'll get into verse 11 now. That was covering verses 8 through 10. Verse 11, let anyone who has ears to hear listen to what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will never be harmed by the second death. Never be harmed by the second death refers to, at the judgment when, when Christ is separating believers and non-believers. I'm sorry. And, if you're truly a Christian, like you truly have that deep relationship with Christ, you can't be separated from God. Do I believe that you can backslide? Yes, but I don't believe there's anything that can separate you from God if you are truly a Christian and have that relationship with Him. Let's see. And some Christians, even despite the eternal salvation that we've received, some Christians are still going to face a loss at the time of judgment, because Jesus is going to rebuke them for lack of faithfulness, being unfaithful. And for that, I try your hardest and not let it be for you, but be for God. Be faithful to God. He was faithful to us, and he's always going to be faithful. He's kept his promises no matter what. I mean, he was faithful enough to send his son so that we can be with him again, as he intended it to be. But that's what I got for y'all tonight. I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll be covering the letter to Pergamum. If I butchered that, I'm sorry. But like I said, that's all I got. So good night. Love y'all. Most importantly, Jesus loves y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.